All right, welcome to session 7 of 10-minute Excel training. This week we are going through miscellaneous functions part 2. A reminder, the class is recorded, so don't do anything dumb. Make sure you open the workbook that I sent around this morning. Should look something like what I've got on the screen here. As I said, we're doing a bunch of miscellaneous functions, kind of like last week, just going through the ribbon and kind of picking out some interesting things that you might not have ever heard of and could be potentially useful for you guys. Again, it's pretty simple stuff, but it's probably potentially useful as well. All right, let's jump straight into it. We're going to start off with remove duplicates. Remove duplicates is in the data tab. So that's up the top. Alt A gets you to data, and then remove duplicates is M over here. So remove duplicates allows you to, well, as the name suggests, remove duplicates. But it's got quite a smart way of doing things. So let's start off with the first set of 2 columns. You'll notice that I've got 2 sets of 2 columns here. They're both exactly the same. But what we're going to do first is highlight just the first set of data here. And then we're going to go Alt-AM, remove duplicates, Alt-AM, remove duplicates. It's going to ask you whether you want to expand the selection or not. I don't want to at this point. So then we're going to go with that. And then it's just going to say column A. Now you'll see I've got yellow, green, and red here. So if I remove all the duplicates, what I'm expecting is just 3 cells left to have just yellow, green, and red. Similarly, if I go to the second column here, and I apply the same, function to remove duplicates. I've got apples, bananas, grapes, and strawberries here. If I remove duplicates, I expect to just have 1 of each of them. There. Now, with this second set of data, you can see that I've got yellow apples, yellow bananas twice. I've got green grapes twice, green apples once, red apples twice, red strawberries, and red grapes. If I select both of these and go remove duplicates with both highlighted, it's going to apply them as if it's like both at the same time. It'll make more sense once I actually do it. So we're going to select all, and then we're going to remove duplicates. So you'll see that in this situation, it's removed the duplicate where it's both items are exactly the same. I find remove duplicates to be really useful, especially when I'm doing things like a sum if, and I want to sum if like everything that's actually there in a big data set. So then what I do is I just select the full column, remove duplicate, or copy it into a new column, remove duplicates from that column, and then I'm confident that I've got all of the options there for me to do whatever data or whatever analysis I want to do on it. Yeah, I use remove duplicates quite often, actually, and you'll be surprised how functional it is. Next up, we've got data validation, which is probably not super useful unless you're building models. What data validation does is it limits what people can input into particular cells. So say, for example, I want in this column of data here, I want it to just have these 6 inputs. I don't want anyone to be able to put anything else other than these inputs here. So what I'm going to do is go Alt-AVV, as I specified there, Alt-AVV. So A is data, V is data validation, and then V again is data validation. Now this pop-up box is going to come up. And because I've got these cells selected, it's going to apply it against those cells. I'm going to go settings, allow. Currently it's allow any value. By default, all cells allow any value. But what I want is a list. And the source of that list is going to be these cells here. Once I've got that in, I can press OK. Now you'll see that this drop-down box has come up on my cells here. And that means that I can only put what was in the lookup table. If I want to try to put something different, it won't let me because the data validation has restricted the whatever input I want to put in there. So this is really useful if you're starting to build models and build things that other people are using, and you want to limit the type of data that is allowed within those particular cells. In this case, I can only put in things in this dropdown. It's also useful if like you're just lazy and you want to have a dropdown for a list of things that you're repeatedly putting in. So similarly, if I just want this to have a numerical input, I'm going to go again, data validation, Alt AVV. And then in settings, I'm going to go allow either a whole number or a decimal number. Doesn't really matter. I'm just going to go decimal. You could even go between particular values, but I don't think you have to specify them. But you do. Okay. Let's just go 0 and 100. Okay. Which means I can only now put in numbers between 0 and 100. So I can put 50. I'm going to put 50.5, 4. But say, for example, I want to put 200. Again, the data validation will stop. It'll restrict me from putting in those kinds of values. Or if I want to put in, say, text, it similarly won't let me. So that's quite useful for just to control the inputs in particular data sets that you might have. Moving down, we've got group. I'm sure you guys have seen grouping before, but just to go over it again, if I want to group all these rows, it goes in. We have data, so up the top, Alt A. Then group is on the right here, G, and then we go G again. And then if we go Alt A, G, G, then we've got, well, a new grouping. Oh, it's not showing up for some reason. Normally you'd see a little plus thing here, but don't know why it's not showing up. If I want to hide the detail from this group, I can go Alt AH. So now that's all hidden. If I want to show detail, I go Alt AJ, which is up there, up the top there. Alt AJ shows detail. And then if I want to ungroup it, I select my group and I go Alt AUU. Alt A being data, U being ungroup, and then we go ungroup again. And now it's ungrouped. All right. Almost out of time. So let's talk freeze pane. Oh, sorry. Going back to group, you don't have to just group rows, you can group columns as well. But again, I'm not sure why my thing's not showing up. It's a bit dumb. Yeah, you can definitely group both rows and columns. All right, next up we've got freeze panes. Freeze panes, it's more useful just to show you than to explain it. So what I want to do is freeze the first 3 rows and the first 2 columns. So the top 3 rows is these 3 here. The first 2 columns is these 2 here. What I want to do is I want to select this cell here. The one just under the first 3 rows and the one just right of the first 2 columns. And then if I go Alt W, W is view, F is freeze panes, and then F again, freeze panes. Now my top 3 rows have been frozen, and my left, the first 2 columns are also frozen, which means if I go down, those first 3 rows are stuck there, which means I don't have to keep scrolling back up to look at them. Similarly, I can scroll. Oh, well, no, I can't because I've been too smart and made this too small. But anyways, if I kept scrolling right, I think I can. Yeah, there we go. If I kept scrolling right, then those first 2 columns will stay there because they're frozen. Alt WFF again to unfreeze. Now split panes is the last thing. If I want to split panes here, well, again, it's just a thing that is a bit more obvious once I show you how it works. So if I want to go split panes here, split panes is again in view, and then you can do a split there. Otherwise, you go Alt WS. Split panes is, I find, not that useful because it requires a lot of clicking. But you could theoretically split your worksheet into 4 different sections. So if you've got a gigantic thing, you could have, the top left as the top left section of your workbook. And then you can independently scroll each of these sections. But to me, it's not very useful. But some people like it. And then I think you got Alt WS to unsplit. Yeah, that's it. That's it. There's like other, going back up to data validation, there's other protections that we can talk about as well, but I probably won't go through it right now. Yeah, there's like a lot of, so in the review tab, there's some protections here, but it's a bit of a thing to talk about. So let's do it another time. Any questions? Nah, nice one. All right.
Maddie, with data validation, I often come across that in some of the worksheets that we've been using with RAS,
Yeah.
and probably in the future. How do I remove protection from a cell if I want to put something else in it?
So you just go data validation, and then you go.
Ah, beautiful.
I'm pretty sure you can just clear validation circles there.
All right, easy. Thanks, mate.
No worries. I think that's it. If you have any other questions, if you have more suggestions for future 10-minute Excel training, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see you all next week.
Thanks, Matt. It's really
Thanks,
good.
buddy.
Thank you, Matt. That was great.
Cheers, Matt. Appreciate it.
Talk soon.